Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi.
Greetings from Chicago Land. This is Munira Zahabi for Munira's Musings with another guest and another topic, interesting topic about resiliency and depression and how we can find another way to get out of the rabbit hole and use what we have to change the modality of our energies into something else. Our guest today is Jennifer Whitacre is here from
Columbus, Ohio.
Welcome to our show, Jennifer. You know that this show highlights people who have found their niche. And what we want to know is how you found your niche and why you're doing what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here, Munira. I'm excited to be here today and to talk about this. So a little bit about me. I currently in my life, I'm an empowerment strategist and a trauma specialist and a podcaster. And now officially I'm a resiliency trainer. So that's new. That's a certification that I've gotten since being in COVID. How did I get here? That's a good question. I've lived through a lot of trauma in my life. And when I say trauma, it's been a lot of the more hidden forms of trauma, like emotional abuse, neglect, verbal abuse, not necessarily the physical abuse where there were, bruises or cuts all over my body or anything like that. It's the hidden. I often refer to it as the hidden forms of abuse because they can be really sneaky. So I lived through a lot of emotional abuse and verbal abuse and neglect as a child. And that really distorted my sense of normal. And when I got into adulthood, I found myself in relationships, and not just relationships with people I dated. It was friendships, coworkers. It was like everybody in my life had some level of toxicity, and I didn't see it because that was my normal. And once I got into adulthood, I found myself in abusive relationships and verbally abusive friendships, working under toxic bosses, and it got to be too overwhelming for me. So I started down the path of trying to figure out what's wrong with me, because that was my first question. What's wrong with me? I'm the problem. I'm the one that's broken here. And
say that you were attracting people of that caliber.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like I teach residents like tuning forks, like my tuning fork was attracting people into my life who were like me. Because I had that same level of toxicity. So it got to the point where, like I said, it was so overwhelming that I started down this path trying to fix myself, thinking that I was broken. And what I've discovered is that a lot of those emotions and those icky, heavy, weighted feelings and sensations that I had in my body, I discovered a way to metabolize that into feeling like fuel, my battery, my creativity, my strength, and how I work with people. Because once I learned how to, again, the only word that comes to mind is metabolize it. Because our body, whenever our body metabolizes, the food that we eat, that becomes our fuel. And sometimes the foods that we eat that our bodies metabolize that are the healthiest for us and give us the most fuel aren't always the tastiest ones, and we don't always enjoy them the most. Think of kale. I don't like kale. However, I will eat it because I know that it's good for me, and I recognize how much better I feel after something like that. So it's kind of one of those, you hold your nose and you do it. And that's kind of how it is. Like I see some of these simple emotions that really weight us down, like anger and anxiety and frustration. I see that as if we know what to do with it and how to work with it, that can be like our kale, if we know how to metabolize that into something good for ourselves.
So first of all, you said you were attracting all these things, all these people of this caliber. Why does that happen?
I think it happens because, again, in my life, it was like my sense of normal, and there is a resonance. So one of the things I do that I incorporate into my empowerment strategy program is I'm a certified heart math coach mentor through the Heart Math Institute in California. And I pull the heart math work into the empowerment strategy work that I do. Well, heart math is studying resonance, and they have been able to measure the electromagnetic field around the body, because we know that we have electricity in our body. It's electricity that makes our heart pump. It's electricity that makes the neurons fire, and it's what makes our brains work. So whenever there's electricity present, there is by definition an electromagnetic field. So heart math is measuring this field, and they've measured it 6 to 8 feet around the body in any direction. So that's, somewhere between 12 and 16 feet in diameter. So when asked, why is the field 6 to 8 feet? They said, well, that's about what our equipment will measure. We suspect it goes further than that, and we're just not able, because we don't have the equipment to measure it any further. So this resonant field sends out a vibration. And if you think about tuning forks, anybody who's ever worked with tuning forks or stringed instruments knows this about resonance. If you get one tuning fork to vibrate, and you have another tuning fork that is tuned at the same thing sitting across the room, it's going to start to vibrate even though you didn't ding it against anything, because that wave is going to resonate. And so that's what we do through our resonant field. We are sending this wave out, and then people who have a similar resonance are going to be attracted to us.
Yeah, so this is physics, because I'm thinking of my physics class a long time ago.
Right.
So you are taking, so how does one break that cycle?
It's becoming aware on the inside of what we're experiencing. So I had to stop looking at the world around me and saying everything that's wrong is your fault. It's because I started working at this place that I'm having all these issues, or it's because of this, it's because of that. I realized that I had to start putting out a different frequency. So in order to do that, I had to get myself into a different emotional state. So I couldn't continue to wallow in my anger or my anxiety or my depression. At some point, I had to find a way, like I said, to metabolize that into a higher level, more complex emotion. And so what I mean by that is anger, for example, is one of those emotions that when we are having an experience of anger, it's really hard to be anything but angry in the moment. And a lot of times when we're angry, we kind of, sometimes the anger gets so big that we lose our heads a little bit, and we say things or do things that we really wouldn't do if the anger hadn't overtaken us so much. So what I've learned is if I can take that anger and if I can find a way to metabolize that, like, why am I having the anger? What caused it? And this has been what I've discovered about myself, a pattern for me. One of my patterns is when I don't establish my boundaries well enough and people cross my boundaries, and I don't reestablish them, and I continue to allow them to cross my boundaries over and over, then my anger starts to get bigger. And I have a tendency to blame it on other people that they crossed my boundaries when they might not know what my boundary is. So that anger, the bigger it is, communicates to me in my pattern that I need to reestablish my boundaries a little bit stronger and speak up for myself. And that might mean saying no, despite the fact that somebody might get mad at me if I say no. That might, and letting go of that people pleasing. So really establishing like, which is what I want to do. Do I want to go do this thing, or do I need to stay home and do some self-care? So sometimes the self-care needs to take precedence over that thing that somebody else wants me to do. So again, reestablishing my boundaries and really checking in with myself is what helps metabolize that into what I call a higher level emotion. So once we can get into higher level emotions like empathy and compassion and forgiveness. And those are emotions where we're holding more than one thing at the same time. So when I can get to compassion, I can hold myself in a way where I understand that, yes, I'm experiencing anger. And at the same time, I can also be kind enough with myself to say, I need to take care of me. I need to step back. Or, I need to reestablish my boundary. I need to, speak up and say no. So it's the both and. It's holding more complex or multiple simple emotions at the same time instead of being overtaken by them.
So you're truly compassionate about this product, this whole emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to bring you down a lot lower than where we've started, because
Mm-hmm.
for people like me and people that are listening, they don't understand. I mean, if there's anger happening right there, I'm not going to sit there, take a step back and think, why am I so angry? We're going to do the emotion, lash out, get angry, speak what we have to do, because anger is a part of madness, right? It is a form of madness. We can't
Right.
control our emotions. So,
I don't believe that.
Well, most people can't.
And with practice, we can.
Yeah,
I spent years not.
I'm talking about not somebody in the program. I'm talking about the listeners out there who are not in your program.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to take a step back and say, oh my God, why am I so angry at this person right now? Nobody's going to think like that. Like you said, it takes practice and you have to work on it. But what I'm asking you is, if somebody who hasn't done this, who hasn't analyzed themselves, how are they going to feel? How are they going to create a boundary and then let everybody know this is my boundary, don't walk over it?
Mm-hmm. Well, and when it comes to boundaries, our boundaries are for ourselves. So we have this misconception that if we have a boundary, everybody should be able to read our minds and just know what our boundaries are. And then we get offended and upset or triggered if somebody crosses one of our boundaries. And that's not what boundaries are for. Our boundaries are for us, not for other people. So when somebody crosses one of our boundaries, a lot of times anger is the emotion that lets us know that somebody has crossed a boundary. And so, and I do, I practice the pause. I say this all the time, practice the pause. Whenever you notice anger coming up, pause. You don't have to react. You don't have to say anything. I spent a lot of years of my life being that reactive person, believing that I couldn't control my emotions. And once I just stopped for a minute and listened to other people, I realized that, wow, there is a way to control your emotions. And the portal for controlling your emotions is the language of sensation in the body. So becoming self-aware and noticing the sensations that we experience on the inside, and that gives us our choice point. And I don't like to use the F word. I call it the F word, which is feeling, because as soon as you say to somebody, how are you feeling? Or what are you feeling? They go right into their head and they think about what they're feeling. So they start to think about it. And you'll even see, people going, oh gosh, what am I feeling right now? You can see them thinking about it. You can see the wheels turning. And if you're thinking about what you're feeling, you're not sensing into your body, you're thinking about it. You're processing through the wheels of your mind. So get into the sensation, and it's really important to notice. And that's one of the things that I teach in resiliency classes. And even with the 3-hour introductory resiliency course, and this is just kind of like the bare bones of it, people are able to start to distinguish those sensations in their body and start to find that choice point. Because think about it, whenever you experience anxiety or irritation or frustration, there's always a felt sense to that in the body. So what is that sensation that you experience? And a lot of times when somebody's having anxiety, for example, and this isn't across the board, everybody's experiences are unique to them. And there are also similarities. So similarities with anxiety can be, like the racing heart, and you just feel like your heart is really pumping out of your chest, and that nervousness and that, and then the mind often follows with the, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And the worries. So if you can notice the sensations that you're feeling, sometimes that tightness in the chest and the racing heart, even the sweaty palms, if you can notice those sensations, ask yourself, what else is true? Yes, my heart's racing. Yes, I'm getting some tightness and constriction in my chest. Yes, my breathing is really shallow. I can't get the belly breath. My palms are sweaty. Is there some place in my body that might also have a neutral or a more comfortable sensation than what this is? And for most of us, yes, that's true. So one place for me that's safe to go to is the tip of my nose. If I'm feeling overwhelmingly angry and I focus my attention, all of my attention right here on the tip of my nose, this is a spot that's usually really neutral for me and sometimes even pleasant. So if I put all of my attention, and remember, energy goes where attention flows, or energy flows where attention goes. I think I got that exactly backwards. So if we can focus all of our attention right here, then what's happening in my chest, it might not go away entirely, but it might go from an 8 down to a 3 or 4. And that's a big deal if you can reduce the experience in your body. And so it's through the language of sensation that we find this. And the more you practice it with conscious awareness, the more it becomes part of your second nature. So it becomes part of your procedural memory, part of your implicit memory. And you get to a point where your body just starts to shift into focusing on what's neutral or more comfortable on just as second nature. And so that's where the practice comes in. But with conscious awareness, you can get results really, really quickly by where and how you focus your attention on the inside.
So, so the methodology of counting to 10 before you say something or when you're angry, that works as well, because, okay, count backwards to 10 and then see if you're feeling the same emotion, and that kind of dissipates, the whole emotion dissipates and allows you to take a step back and say, okay, this is my boundary. I don't need to get angry. I can walk away from this.
Exactly. And it's okay to be angry. What it's not okay to do is let the anger dictate our words and emotion, or our words and actions toward other people and, the situation around us.
So we take anger as one of the emotions. What about love? How can we do the same thing with love? I mean, is there a methodology to love? Because anger is one extreme, love is the other. Can we do the same with love?
Yes, I believe so. Because if you find that place, like, what does your body feel like? Or, sorry, there's that F word again. What are you sensing in your body when you have an experience of love? And the more that you can tap into that experience, the more that you can remember it. It's called resourcing. So love is a resource for us. So the more we can tap into that experience in those moments when we're having anger or frustration or anxiety, we can use that as a resource to help pull ourselves out of it or pendulate out of it. So we're not overtaken by the anxiety or overwhelm of the situation. So if we can pendulate in the other direction, a lot of times it helps us get our thinking mind and our executive functioning back online enough to where we can find a solution without letting our anger come out in this big display of something we're going to regret later based on what we've said or done.
So there's anger, there's love. What other emotions are there?
Oh my gosh, there are all kinds of emotions. So some of our basic emotions, there are 7 really basic emotions that all mammals have. And, if anybody saw the movie Inside Out, Disney put several of those emotions in there. Paul Ekman's work in microexpressions talked about this. So we've got, let me see if I can remember all 7 of them. I didn't know if we were going here today. There's joy and anger and fear and disgust, contempt, surprise, happiness. Did I say happiness? I think those are the 7 basic emotions that we all have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
when does one contact you?
I'm sorry?
When does one contact you?
When does, you mean like a client reach out to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, people who want to learn how to manage their own emotions, and who do believe that they can control their emotional state and find that choice point. And I do want to make it really clear that there is truth to we don't have control over our emotions, and there's also truth to we do have control over our emotions. And if you're not aware that you have a choice point, then yes, your emotions are going to control you and they're going to drag you through life. If you find that choice point and you learn how to make the choice on how you feel, then you get to choose what your emotions are, and then you can use your emotions as your guidance through life. They're like our GPS system. However, it's going to drag you. So if you don't have conscious awareness of it, it's going to drag you through life. So there's truth to both sides of the story. And so for those people who are ready to flip the switch and find that choice point within themselves, that's when people reach out to me, whenever they realize that they're ready to flip the switch and find their choice points, but they haven't figured it out yet.
How do they find you?
They can find me online at jenniferwhitacre.com. I'm on Facebook. My business page is Jennifer Whitacre. And those are the two best places. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jennifer Whitacre on LinkedIn. So those are the best places to find me. I don't do a whole lot on social media. And you can always reach out to me via email. My email is info@jenniferwhitacre.com.
So ladies and gentlemen, emotions are heavy, especially at this time, right? During COVID, people are stressed out, people are happy, some people are joyful because there's a lot of things that are happening in people's lives. Some people are having babies, some people are passing on. That's sadness. People are angry because they've lost their jobs. So right now we're feeling all of the 7 emotions that you mentioned. What is one thing that the listeners can do? One last thing that you can share with us, the last thing that they can do to dissipate whatever feeling they are feeling and just to feel normal?
Well, one thing is kind of what I described a few minutes ago. Whenever you notice that you're having an emotion that feels really uncomfortable, like fear or anger or, like irritation and frustration, those are, several other emotions as well, in addition to the basic 7. But if you have an emotion that's weighing you down and it feels really heavy, see if you can find another place in your body that you can sense into that might have a neutral or more comfortable sensation than the discomfort that you're experiencing with the anger or the fear or the sadness or whatever that is. And some safe places to go to for most people. Now, there are absolutely going to be exceptions, but safe places to focus your attention for something neutral or more comfortable are often the tip of your nose, your earlobes, your elbows, behind your knees. Those are typically safe places that we can go to. And that's going to be different for everybody. So some people, it's surprising what comes up with people. And once you find that spot, continue to go back to it and just notice, is it comfortable or neutral on a regular basis? And if it is, you'll discover that safe spot where you can focus all of your attention and just kind of maybe not get all of your discomfort to go away, but if you can alleviate it, it's going to help you get through your day a lot better if your anxiety is at a 3 instead of an 8.
That's awesome tips. And just focus on these angles, right? These are all angles that you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Body. So just, make sure that you're focusing on the angle and make sure it's not only just anger, it's all the emotions that we feel. And just that could be your happy place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the happy place is a resource. So if people have that happy place in their mind, when you go to that happy place in your mind, ask yourself, okay, when I envision this, lovely beach or mountaintop or whatever that place is for you, whenever you envision that, imagine, can you see it? Can you smell it? Can you hear it? Like what all is going to come through your sensory organs, as you're in that place? And can you imagine the sensation that you would be feeling in your body or sensing in your body if you were there in person. So if you can get to that sensory experience, that's going to get that happy place in your mind to become a resource that you can use to shift yourself out of those uncomfortable emotions.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Jennifer Whitacre from Ohio. She is a resilient and empowerment strategist, and we need all of that because these days, in these times of COVID, when we felt there's no hope and we feel cooped up a little bit, and then we have emotions running amok in our bodies, we need somebody like her to help us figure out where we are supposed to be. And if that's one of you, just go ahead and reach out to her and figure out if this is something that you want to work with her about. The thing with us is that we are emotional creatures. We as mammals are emotional creatures, and we need somebody to help us bring down all of the emotions that we have going on. Some people, like I said, we have so many emotions going on, but if this is one of you, you may find it easier, if you will, to get to a coach like Jennifer to figure out how to bring this emotion down. Thank you so much for being with us, Jennifer. A lot of good tips. We never figure out these emotions, or we never talk about it because people don't think it's important. But today you've shed a lot of good light on it. And thank you so much for opening our eyes to what you are working with. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Munira. It's been a pleasure to be here today.
You are welcome. And for those of you who are here watching, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group.